Welcome back to Switch to Linux. Adobe has gone and done it again. This time they're even threatening legal actions among their subscribers. What? Yes, that's actually true. Yeah, Adobe's a giant mess. Of course, they have worked really hard at becoming the dominant player in the market of, the creative arts, and now that everyone's was pretty much had to use them, they pulled the rug out from everybody and said, now you gotta be on a subscription model. So it's basically like a vampire perpetually attaching fangs to your neck. And then now they just keep on, if you remember in the news, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I forget. But Adobe did away with the bottom tier of the subscription, which was a $10 photography pack, including Photoshop and one other application for photographers, and they doubled the price of that. They just completely doubled it, went from $10 a month to $20 a month, and really nothing you can do about it, because it's like you have gotten yourself so tied to the Adobe ecosystem that you just scream, I can't do anything else, I have to use it. No, you only have to use it as far as that's what you do. You can learn to use alternative programs as well. And if enough people start jumping ship from Adobe, then the alternative programs will just get better. So that's something to think about. So what did Adobe do this time? Well, this article was passed me by a viewer, Isaiah. Thank you. Adobe warns users of older Creative Cloud apps of potential copyright claims. Now, first let's break down CS versus CC. So I still have on my Windows computer, that's the computer behind me that the monitor is off, I still run a CS version 4, which does everything I need it to do just as well. I bought it when the day CS5 came out. The CS4 versions went on sale for 60% off, and I snagged one up that very morning. I think Amazon had like 2 left, and I snagged one of them up. Paid over $1,000 for it. I think it was, $1,000, $1,500, maybe. I forget how much I paid for it, but it was a lot. It was worth it. I mean, it was worth it. The problem is, now I bought that 10 years ago, and it still works just fine. Adobe looks at that type of approach and goes, man, people are buying the software. They're spending a lot of money. Of course, those that buy it, not pirate it, buying the software, they're spending a lot of money, but they're not updating it, because we hit this point in time. If you had CS, like if you had Photoshop before the CS happened, man, it sucked. It's worth the upgrade. In fact, I have a copy of CS2 as well. CS2 to CS4, major leap. CS4 to CS6, not so much. And this is what happens in the model. Like, that computer also still runs Office 2007. There is no reason I have to update beyond Office 2007. It does everything I need it to do. In fact, the later versions of Office start to seriously interfere with my workflow, and so I become less productive. So what ends up happening is we get into this world where we find the software we like, and then we stick with that software, and we don't want to upgrade beyond it because there's really no more reason. So what do these companies do? Well, they force subscription models on you. They force updates. And what's going on here is there was the original CC. So that was a giant rabbit trail to say there's a difference between CC and CS. My apologies, I got off my rabbit trail. So CS is the Creative Suite. This is when you bought the discs. They came with a license. Generally, the license was a perpetual license. As long as you have the discs, you can install it, install the system. That is not impacted, best I can tell. Now, can they shut those off? Yeah. Could they work a backdoor deal with Microsoft to kill those softwares? Yes. We've seen them do that with several other pieces of software. So the challenge here is that your CS for now is still not a problem. The CC, however, this is the subscription model where everything's all in the cloud, but you can download a desktop application. So you work on the desktop application, and that interfaces with your Adobe Cloud, and that's how the system works. Now, what happens here is, back a long time ago with CS, with CC, they had a licensing deal with Dolby. So Dolby, of course, sound audio. And that licensing deal with Dolby, it was easy to figure out how much you owed when you were selling physical copies of the media. The problem is with the subscription services, it becomes harder to say. As an author, I sell print books, I sell digital books. It's a lot easier to figure out what's going on in the print book world than it is in the digital book world. So as I'm trying to figure out how to move everything over into a company, because I'm going to be splitting royalties with some authors I'm co-authoring some things with, and sending royalties to other authors that I don't have anything to do with their book, I'm just their publisher. You get into this situation of how do you know you're getting the right amount of money? And we, authors dealing with Amazon, ran into this issue when Amazon completely killed CreateSpace, forcing everybody onto the KDP platform. And then what ended up happening is there was some issue with the accounting, and a lot of us were deeply concerned we weren't actually getting our ebook sales reported correctly. And then, when it's a print copy, it's a little bit easier to track. When it's a digital copy, it becomes a little bit harder. And that's what happened with Adobe and Dolby. This is totally going to confuse me throughout this talk. But Dolby would allow Adobe to self-report for paying licensing fees and royalties. The question is that every now and again, they will send an independent auditor to go audit the books. And there was some question about whether the audit showed the correct data or did not show the correct data. And so Dolby, not trusting Adobe, sued Adobe. In light of this, it is apparent that Adobe pulled Dolby out of their systems. I'm actually keeping this straighter than I was thinking I was going to. And in so doing, what they're saying is that if you are using one of the older versions of Creative Cloud, it's not Creative Cloud. It is Creative Cloud. Yeah, CC is Creative Cloud. If you're using the older version of Creative Cloud and you're keeping that on your system, you may be using Dolby without Dolby getting the licensing fee from Adobe. And so what they're doing to fix this is saying, we are pulling the license. So even though you're paying the monthly subscription fee for Adobe CC, if you still are running the older version, you are opening yourself up to a lawsuit by Dolby. Because Dolby and Adobe are not cooperating well with each other. And it's kind of like if you go into a college town like this town, and if I happen to have roommates around here, all right, if I happen to have roommates, every lease in this town, at least done by the people who know how to do leases, has a clause in that lease called jointly and severally liable. Jointly and severally liable in legalese means that the total rent is due. Say it's $1,000. You got two roommates. Each one contributes $500. Well, if your roommate gets all crazy and gets all strung out on meth and goes and whatever else and chooses to spend all his money on buying his meth supplies rather than paying his rent, they don't care that you've paid your $500. They still are owed $500, and they're going to come after both of you. They look at the two of you and go, this guy's got a good job. This guy's a meth head. We're going to sue the guy with a good job because our clause says jointly and severally liable, which means jointly, you guys figure it out on your own. Our task is to collect $500 from all people in the lease, which means $1,000 total. And if we can't get it from the meth head, we're going to get it from the other guy instead. That's what a jointly and severally liable is. And so basically what Dolby apparently is looking at this is, we are not getting our licensing fee. Adobe is not paying us the licensing fee. So if we find out anybody's using our software, this software which has Dolby in it, we are going to sue that person for our licensing fee. That seems to be what's going on. And so to account for this, Adobe said if you're using anything other than the latest two versions of Creative Cloud desktop software, that license is now revoked and you are not allowed to use that. That's exactly what they're basically saying. So they're sending these letters out. So here's actually a copy of that letter a little bit bigger. Let's see if I can get it even bigger. There we are. There's even bigger. So it says, Dear valued customer, this is coming from Adobe to the customers of Adobe Creative Cloud. All right. At Adobe, we always strive to deliver more value to our customers, including much requested new features and capabilities, critical bug fixes, and security updates. You can tell this is written by a PR person. All right, it continues. For these reasons, we recommend all customers to use the latest release of our Creative Cloud applications. We have recently discontinued certain older versions of Creative Cloud applications, and as a result, under the terms of our agreement, you are no longer licensed to use them. Our records show you may be using the following versions, and it will list the versions. Please be aware, should you continue to use a discontinued version, you may be at risk of potential claims of infringement by third parties. Please upgrade to the latest versions. Okay, now this is where I have some serious problems with these licensing type models, with these cloud-based systems. There may be some problem with that new version. Example, I'm using GIMP on Linux right now, which, by the way, there's no licensing fee, but there is a filter in GIMP 2.10 that does not work that I use on a daily basis. As a result, I keep my GIMP locked at 2.8. If I were forced to upgrade to 2.10, I would lose some of the functionality unless they fixed that, and last I knew they didn't. However, that was about 4 or 5 months ago. Maybe I should look into it again. It wasn't that long. It was only 2 months ago. I don't know. But anyway. With that being said, what Adobe is now trying to do is trying to tell you you cannot use this software more. Even though you are still paying a monthly subscription, we do not allow to use that piece of software. You have to use the latest software. What happens if the latest 2 software contain really bad stuff in it? What happens if they're scraping everything that you do and you don't have a choice in it because you can't use that third party? What happens if you get sued for using software that you're actually paying for? I think that you'd probably just, if someone tried to come after me, I'd be like, go talk to Adobe. I'm paying them for it. You know, that's an interesting thought, an interesting question, an interesting whatever. And so with that being said, this is kind of a frightening thing. Now, here's what Adobe actually says. They don't make any reference at all to this potential lawsuit, although that is what's going on. So they offer numerous different things, and this is all just a positive PR spin. Going forward, you can only download the latest 2. This will enable you to have the best features from our recommended people. Oh, shut up, you stupid PR person. Really? Really? This is more about what everyone else knows it's about. It's turning into a big legal mess. Cloud is supposed to be a big win-win for all parties involved. Consumers always have access to the latest and supposedly most bug-free version. The reality is sometimes it's harsher and stranger than fiction, and now subscribers to Adobe's Creative Cloud Suite are finding themselves the subject of potential legal threats from third parties suing Adobe itself. All right. And so, of course, the article goes on to talk about what we've already talked about with doubling the subscription price of the old photography model. Now they go into more detail about the Dolby lawsuit. So what is a person to do? Well, the reality is, GIMP will replace Photoshop for the vastest majority of users. There are definitely some niche cases where you have to continue using the Adobe products. It is far fewer people than justify it by saying GIMP sucks. No, it doesn't suck. It's just difficult to use, kind of like Photoshop is. Remember the first time you booted up Photoshop and you looked at it and you said, had no idea what you're doing, and you got used to it and you know what you're doing? Well, GIMP's the same way. It is just as full-featured. In fact, there's several things that I find it does better. That's my thoughts. So what do you do? Well, they have a whole variety of software, and I can't rattle off every single alternative replacement, but here's some brief ones. If you need Photoshop, look at GIMP and look at Krita. Those 2 will handle all of your needs, and there are others than the things I'm going to mention. For Dreamweaver that I use a lot as a web developer, Bluefish is every bit as good. Bluefish is awesome. Again, there's some other editors as well. There's some more simple ones, which are basically just like Notepad with code hints. I like the more full-featured type applications. I don't know why, because I actually just code things manually anyway with code hints. I don't know. Maybe I should try Atom. I don't know. If you're using Illustrator, look at Inkscape. I think Inkscape is every bit as good as Illustrator. The only thing I know of that it doesn't support, there's probably other things. The only thing I know of it doesn't support is multiple canvases. Unless they've changed that recently, I don't know. And there's going to be other software as well out there that will definitely replace the vast majority of your Adobe products. Of course, for video editing, I use Kdenlive Live. So there are alternatives out there, and it's very important that we look to the alternatives, because Adobe is, they have gotten us all in one room. They have now closed the door, and now they are squeezing the walls tighter and tighter on their own customer base. They are vampires. They're going to keep coming for more and for more and for more. And this is just a sign of this. So what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you use it? Do you not use it? Have you ever used GIMP? Have you gotten frustrated on it? What about Inkscape? What about Bluefish? Let us know your comments down below.